Welcome to the Soffy Blues, your source for all things Everton, and welcome to the live show where I'm joined by Paul McAllister, and we are going to be discussing the aftermath of, let's be honest, 3 days of absolute chaos in football as we know it. 12 teams, 6 from our own Premier League, have tried to screw football over for financial gain. It's all come crashing down. And now a lot of people are talking about the repercussions that could come from this. And Paul and I are going to discuss what this all means for football moving forward. So we'll get straight into it, Paul. First of all, sum up what we've witnessed in the last 3 days, because certainly in my lifetime, obviously we had the Premier League breakaway in '92. I wasn't born then. This is even more so than that. I'd say this is the most seismic thing that's happened in football for a long, long time.
Yeah, mate, bang on. I think the word you just used to describe it then, chaos, is the word. It just felt like the football world as we knew it was ending. Do you know what I mean? It just felt like Armageddon. Absolutely. And I was born in '94, so I'm too young for the Premier League breakaway as well. But it felt like this was the biggest moment in the sport's history since that came about, since the big five, as we were then, which included us, decided to break away from the Football League and create a new league of our own. And it just felt like that times 3, sort of. I imagine everyone who spoke to, who does remember that time, has all said they had the exact same feeling at the time. But this was even worse than then, because unlike in the '90s when Sky got involved and the Premier League was formed, there wasn't any talk of scrapping the pyramid scheme. There wasn't any talk of no more iconic games where you wouldn't see any more Merseyside derby. Probably you wouldn't see any more Manchester United Newcastle, Manchester United Leeds, Liverpool versus Leeds Newcastle. All fixtures that have history, that fans have grown up watching. Whenever you see any of these sort of the golden years back on Sky from the noughties and the '90s and the 2010s, these are all fixtures that have thrown up lots of stories and iconic moments and memories throughout the years, haven't they? And suddenly think we wouldn't be seeing them anymore. We'd just be seeing the same 12 times 12. We'd just be seeing the same 12 teams play each other over and over and over and over again. It just made you feel sick, didn't it? And it would make me feel sick even if I was a supporter of one of those 6. I wouldn't want to miss out on. I think that sign at Chelsea was perfect, wasn't it? The we want our rainy nights in Stoke. So yeah, just to think that
someone wrote that on the back of a Hello Fresh box.
But that's the most British football fan you could think of, couldn't you? Just someone getting some cardboard box that they've pulled out of a shop.
Cardboard box that they've had the veg delivered in, and
wrote it on
it around, painting it and putting a message on it.
And mentioning Stoke and cold and rain and things like that. So yeah, it was. I was going to say scary, maybe not scary, because I didn't, in my heart of hearts, think it was ever really going to get off the ground. We'll go into that, but it was very, very shocking to the system, wasn't it? And it was very, very sort of, what's the word? Knocked everyone for 6. Like you didn't know what to think, did you?
Yeah.
So I'm just glad it's over, to be honest, or it's over for now.
For now, and I mean this is kind of what we're looking at discussing anyway in this show, is the for now is what happens moving forward. Now, of course, we heard a lot of talk last night when, of course, the Super League pretty much collapsed when the English teams pulled out of it. There's a lot of talk about UEFA paid these clubs off with a lot of money to convince them to swerve the Super League and return to the European, the Champions League and the respective leagues.
I get where people are coming from with that. I mean, it seems a bit convenient, doesn't it, that whilst all this was going on and everyone's attention was focused on this one specific thing, all these Champions League reforms were slowly getting snuck in the back door. It's like they creeped in the slippers, weren't they? Normally that would be all over the media. That would be what everyone was outraged about, but it's barely even been mentioned. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of football fans don't even know if that's happened, because they've just been so focused on this Super League and all the hoo-ha around that. So I don't think that's the case. I do think that these clubs were 100% serious. If it was all a big conspiracy and it was all just posturing and the game of poker, then I don't think we'd be seeing the resignations that we're seeing, because Ed Woodward, as United fans have been trying to hound him out of there for years, and he's stayed, hasn't he? He wouldn't just resign from United unless basically it all blew up in his face and he was left with nowhere to go. Essentially, apparently, as the guy at Juve, Agnelli, or if I'm pronouncing that wrong, as he left Juventus. I saw the report saying he had, but I've not seen it confirmed. Well,
yeah, I think he's gone.
Apparently, yeah, something's going on with him at Juventus, and his family have been in charge of Juventus for, I think, something stupid like 100 years. That family in Juventus go back generations upon generations. I don't think he'd walk away from Juventus unless something like that, unless basically he was throwing in the towel and he was admitting that it's a lost cause. At least this version of it's a lost cause. So I just think there's too many people who've been left with head on the face and they're walking away from powerful, highly paid positions that, if this was all just part of a master plan, that they wouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I think people have they've realised that they've made a mistake. But with that in mind, we saw Jamie Redknapp on Sky today saying everyone makes mistakes and we should all just move on. Is that how you see it?
Did he say that? Yeah.
Not in that exact sense, but I'm basically paraphrasing there. He did say something along those lines.
But Jamie Redknapp's a Liverpool fan, isn't he? He doesn't want to see anything happen to his beloved Liverpool. So he's basically hoping that everyone just forgets about it and there's no sanctions. So it doesn't shock me, because he's just an airhead in general, putting it mildly. But all this, I'll just move on and forget about it. That can't be allowed to happen, because if there's no punishment, mate, what's stopping them doing this again down the line?
They'll do it next week.
Yeah, they'll do it next week, do it next year, 5 years. As soon as the heat dies down and they feel like everyone's forgotten about it and the coast is clear, should we say, they'll just go for it again. And I'm convinced they will go for it again, because I think even if they are sanctions, the sanctions won't be anywhere near enough of a deterrent. So, no, there's no such thing as just, let's all have a hug and a kiss and make up now. I know the UEFA president's pretty much saying that, isn't he? Welcome back to the family. Thanks for coming to your senses. And I think there are supporters of certain clubs, of these 12 that broke away, that are willing to just let bygones be bygones. They are willing to just forget about it. All the owners have got to do is sign a player for them, or, I don't know, make them freeze the season tickets. They've just got to make some sort of conciliatory gesture. And the fans will just forget. But I think there are other fans who, the owners were unpopular anyway, who won't forget this. So, no.
Yeah, I think we know what we're referring to, the likes of the Glazers here, aren't we? Like
the Glazers, the guy who owns Tottenham. Levy's not the owner. Levy's just the chairman, who's basically the man front and centre for that owner. I can't think of his name. He's a tax exile, isn't he?
Joe Lewis.
Adam. Yeah, him and Levy are unpopular at Tottenham with most of the Tottenham fans. So there's them, there's the Glazers. Kroenke's, of course, not popular with the Arsenal, is he? But Abramovich, Chelsea fans will forgive Abramovich because he's basically made their club what it is, essentially.
Same with City and the Sheikhs.
Same with City and the Sheikhs. Liverpool will get over what's happened with FSG. Most of them will anyway.
A lot of them will we'll forgive you if they sign Mbappe or something.
No, behave. They're not signing Mbappe, mate. Not in the wildest dreams. But I've seen a lot of people already basically accepting his apology, shall we say. Basically, him just getting on camera and pretending like he's sad. I've seen a lot of fans.
We're not starting cheering,
yeah, some fans are accepting that, and even for the ones who are still angry at him, all he's got to do is go out in the summer and buy a player for them, and they'll get over it. And the teams abroad, like Barcelona and Real, those fans will basically just, their presidents, like Perez and Laporta, the new one at Barca, they basically view their club presidents like the North Koreans view Kim Jong-il. Do you know what I mean? He's basically their dictator, their leader. They'll just go with anything he says. Do you know what I mean? Even if they don't like something, like this idea, they'll just accept it for what it is because it's what the president wants. That's how it works in those countries and their culture. It's not like here in England. There wasn't mass protests in Italy or Spain, no matter how unhappy they were. So, yeah, I think some owners have basically ruined their reputations forever, but they were already unpopular anyway. Some have just done a lot of damage, and it will take a couple of months or years to build the trust back up. And I think there's some owners who basically they're just untouchable. No matter what they do, the fans are not really going to change how they feel one way or the other.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's obviously moving forward. You need to see certain things may be sort of sanctions may be placed upon personnel, but with that in mind, what should happen to the teams when they come back to the Premier League, Champions League? Straight away, Erwin Koeman's just popped in with they need to be banned. What's your opinion, Paul? What's the best course of action?
There's a lot of different suggestions I've seen, and I think all of them have got positives and negatives. I've seen people suggesting you dock them points. I've seen people saying you relegate them. Seen people saying you do a transfer ban, and that will obviously weaken the team. I've seen people saying that you should kick them out of Europe for a certain amount of time. I think all those options have got to be on the table, and they've all got the merits. And no matter what punishment is handed out to them, they can't turn around and say it's too harsh. There's no such thing as too harsh. You can get punishment.
I don't think so. They've undermined the league and the Champions League.
It's a coup. It's a coup d'état, mate. Basically, they've tried to unseat the status quo, and I know the status quo was terrible as it is.
They are the status. These teams are the status quo, though.
Well, yeah, essentially, they've just tried to rejig it. But it's a coup. They've basically tried to go. They've gone to the Premier League and UEFA. Basically, we don't care what you think. We don't care about all these other clubs that you've got a responsibility to. We're willing to just leave them behind and let them starve, essentially. And we'll go and do our own thing. And the top and bottom of it is they've seen their ass, as Jamie Carragher said on Sky. And I don't normally like him, but he was spot on in what he said when he went, as soon as one club bottles it, as soon as one club decides that we're not going to do this, actually, we're going to pull back, the whole house will come falling down. And that's exactly what happens. Chelsea and City, I'm not sure. I think Chelsea was announced they were pulling out first, but City had actually gone about it. They just hadn't got the PR. They hadn't got the message out. But these teams seen their ass for we're getting out of this, and then the whole thing after that, the likes of Liverpool, the likes of Spurs, the likes of Atletico, the likes of Arsenal, they all couldn't get out the door quick enough. They were fighting to not be the last person in the room. And
looks like Florentino Perez is definitely the last person in the room.
The whole thing, mate, I can't understand how certain people in that group of 12 or the executives at those 12 clubs, I know there's some of them like Americans and who just have not grown up with the sport. They don't understand the culture. It can sink in with, I can accept, maybe not accept, that's not the right way, but I can understand why these fellas just did not read the room and did not think this was going to happen to or the backlash would be anywhere near as strong, because they're so far removed. They're in another continent. They probably don't watch their own clubs every week. There's no way John Henry watches every Liverpool game. There's no way the Glazers watch every United game, or Kroenke with Arsenal. They're so detached. They're off wherever they are in the world, and they just every now and then poke their head in to see how the team's getting on. Maybe have a meeting with the manager once a year just to discuss what the plans are for the next season. But people like Perez and Agnelli at Juve and Daniel Levy at Tottenham, and even Roman's been on the scene for a good while now. How did these fellas who've grown up in Europe around football for so long think that this was not going to happen? How could they be that naive? I would have thought when this was getting suggested, and apparently it was the Americans spearheading it, wasn't it? When the likes of Glazer and Henry have turned around saying, yeah, let's just do this. I can understand then maybe all these others like Levy and Roman and whoever maybe wanting to do it and saying, yeah, I think that's a good idea. But I can't understand why they didn't say, but you do know this is going to happen. This is what will happen if we do this. I can't believe they haven't educated these Americans and these sheiks when they've got together and had their dinner. Have you ever seen that famous photo of all the owners sitting together in somewhere like New York in a restaurant?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I can't believe that at least one of them from Europe, one of the European ones, didn't turn around and explain to them that this was going to happen. You've got to be prepared for this. Do you know what I mean? How Perez has been in charge of Real Madrid for 20 plus years. And you can maybe, as I said before, he's just so in his own bubble, in his own world, like these Americans, because the Real Madrid fans just treat him as if he's a god for some mad reason, because their culture's different. Maybe he thinks he can just drag Real Madrid out of this and the fans will just get on with it. But how did the likes of Daniel Levy's one of the smartest men in sport, probably one of the smartest chairmen. if you look at the numbers, the amount of money he's made for Tottenham, how did he think that this was going to go down the way it has? Do you know what I mean? It was so badly thought out. How Perez went on Spanish TV and had that stupid car crash interview, didn't he? You'd think someone like Levy would say, or the guy at Juve who's been involved in Italian football, or his family have been involved in Italian football for generations, would say, look, if we're going to announce this is how we need to do it. We need to spend a ton of money on PR, spin doctors. We need to get brilliant production values. Let's get a website that when we unveil it is absolutely top notch. It doesn't look like it's been whacked up in 5 minutes. We need an absolutely brilliantly designed logo that we put loads of effort into, not just some crappy font with a black background like it was. Let's have a big press conference at a stadium, or let's just make it as showbiz as we can. Let's have a big press conference with loads of people there, the world's press. Let's all sit on a big table, big lot of us, like you see at these boxing press conferences and UFC press conferences. Let's do something like that, where we've got 100 cameras in the room, 1,000 journalists. We have this big unveiling. We announce all the rules. We announce all of this, and this is happening. How did they think that we could? Yeah, how did they just think that it was going to be all right? Let's just leak it to some fella in the Times who can write an article about it. Let's roll out a little crappy website, and let's just have
basically post-club statements on Twitter.
Yeah, close. Yeah, and have Florentino Perez go on some no-mark Spanish interview channel, because he went on, that guy who interviewed him for Spanish TV, that was on at midnight in Spain. He's like a late night talk show host. So it'd be like if, I know that at the times the culture's different in Spain, so like they have things on later than we do. But it'd be like if, I don't know, an English chairman like Daniel. It'd be like if Daniel Levy went on Jonathan Ross on Saturday night and just explained it all in an interview and just expected the whole world to get on with it. It's like, how did they think that was going to get people on side? How could they be that incompetent? It just boggles my mind, and it's made me actually thankful, because if they had just done all that stuff that I've just mentioned, there's a far bigger chance this would have got off the ground. It's the fact that the execution has been so bad and the presentation was so bad that has caused all the backlash to it.
It was almost as embarrassing as the idea itself.
The idea itself was terrible, but it had a far better chance of even getting out of the gate if they'd have just done the presentation better. If they'd have just unveiled it to the world in a far smarter and far professional way, rather than just, as you said, posting statements on Twitter, having some journalist in the Times write an article about it, and having one of them, Florentino Perez, go on his mate's chat show in Spain. Do you know what I mean?
It's insane, isn't it? You think about it. Like I said, the last 3 days have been absolute chaos. With that in mind, like moving forward, what would you like to see happen? Points deductions, transfer ban? There's so many mixed opinions on this. Like,
it was up to me. Yeah, I agree with that. If it was up to me personally, and I know people are going to say, "Oh, you're biased because you don't support any of these clubs." If it was up to me, I would ban them from the Champions League for at least 2 seasons, at least 2 years. I don't think a 1-year ban's enough. At least 2 seasons. I'd put a transfer ban in, so they can't go out and buy any of these players. So these owners can't rehabilitate themselves to their fans like they're probably going to. Like I said, all Henry's got to do is go out and buy a £50 million player, and a lot of the Liverpool fans are back on his side if they're not on his side already. Same with the City fans with the Sheik. Just stop them buying new players, so it stays fresh in the fans' memories. So transfer ban, 2-year ban in Europe, and I think the Premier League, because that banning them from the competitions and stopping the transfers, that's UEFA. Then I think the Premier League should look at docking them points. I'll mention this. I'm not having this. Oh, it's not fair on the fans. It's not fair on the managers.
Yeah,
it's not fair on the play.
It's one of the worst agendas.
It's absolute bollocks.
Isn't it?
Wigan went into administration last season. They finished 11th in the Championship. They went into administration, which is against the Football League rules. They broke the rules, whether it's nothing to do with the fans at all. It's nothing to do with the managers or the players. It was the businessmen at the top broke the rules. They let the business go into administration. They got dock points, and they went from finishing 11th to getting relegated. As heartbreaking as that is for everyone who's not the owner, because he's the one responsible. As horrible as that experience that is, and as tough as it is to swallow for the fans, the managers, and the players, it happens because the man at the top didn't take his responsibilities to follow the rules seriously enough, and that's exactly what these have done. So you can't turn around and say it's not fair on the supporters, it's not fair on the fans. I'd put it this way: if in your job or in my job, the owner of the company broke the law, and the consequences of him breaking the law, which is what the equivalent of this, they broke the rules, the written in rules. Our boss in our jobs, or in your jobs, anyone who's watching, broke the law and was fined. And in order to pay that fine, he had to cut costs in the business and he had to lay staff off.
We get laid off,
and you lost your job. Could you turn around and say to whoever's imposed that fine, you can't find a business. You can't make me lose my job. It's not fair on me.
What about redundancies?
What about? Yeah, I'm innocent. Why should I lose my job because the person at the top of the business has broke the law and has to pay money? And in order to pay that money, he has to get rid of me, and I have to suffer. It's bollocks, mate. Same with Juventus. Look at Juventus when they got relegated 15 years ago for the match fixing scandal. Was that the fans' fault? Was that the manager's fault? Was that the players' fault? The manager and the players had nothing to do with that. It was the people at the top of the club who were doing that. So could you turn around and say to those players and managers and the fans, no, do you know those 2 league titles? You're keeping them, by the way, because I know it wasn't your fault. So we're going to let you have those titles.
That might upset the fans, though.
Yeah, but no. You know what? I know the people at the top of the club did an absolutely terrible thing, and it affected everyone else for the negatively. But because it will upset you, we're just gonna leave it. You're not getting relegated. You're not getting kicked out of the competition. You're keeping all the trophies that you won. Forget it. We'll just forgive you. We'll just give you a telling off, and a telling off's nothing with no consequences. It's just someone wagging the finger at you, isn't it? So pay off with all this. You can't punish the clubs because it's not fair on the fans and the players. They haven't done anything.
Loads of rubbish.
They broke the rules. The club has to be punished, and if you don't like it as a supporter or as a manager, as a fan, turn your eye on the owner who's got you into this trouble in the first place. They're the people who's responsible.
And as a pundit, the pundits are the people who are pushing this agenda. By the way, you've got
we know what they are.
Graham Souness was saying this, and he was saying this on Sky Sports, which is a platform which, when Berry and Bolton went into the administration, they had a transfer deadline day style clock counting down to the demise, and that was when Berry and Bolton, they went into the administration. They went under because of their ownership, like you say, mismanaging the club. No one gave one about their fans or their their players. So
exactly, mate. So it's the pundits and the journalists who are suddenly piping up saying, "Oh, you can't do this because it's not fair on the fans." They're just basically fans themselves who've got a platform. Souness is a Liverpool fan who's got a platform to get on Sky and chat his waffle. Essentially, same with Jamie Redknapp, same with Carragher, who said the same. Neville, I'm not going to include in that because Neville has been on record saying he thinks Man United should be heavily punished. But take no notice of these pundits and journalists who are all acting like nothing should happen now because they don't want to see their club get top points, essentially. Just take no notice of them.
In fairness, Gary Neville even suggested that United included should be top points what they've done.
Because he's willing to take his supporter hat off and put his logical hat
impartial on. Pundit hat.
Put his impartial hat on, his common sense hat on. He's willing to just take away the fact that it's his club involved and just look at it for what it is. A owner of this club has broken the rules grotesquely. It's a coup. That's the exact word. It's a coup, what they tried to do. And they've basically come out on the losing side. When you come out the losing side on a coup, mate, you can't just go home and act like nothing happened. That's never been the way in any country or in society at all. When someone tries to knock the person who's at the top off the top and loses, you get punished. Same, look at the bit cheesy, but look what happens in the animal kingdom. Do you know when a new lion comes along and tries to knock the old male lion off, and the old male lion wins? Does that new male lion just get to walk off as if nothing happened, or does the male lion rip his throat out? Do you know what I mean? It's just,
but it's one of them. What about the weaker lion supporters? Can't upset them.
Take notes of that, mate. And I'll just not mention about Souness as well, because he made a comment or a few comments that really bugged me, and I didn't like it myself. I thought it's no shock with him. He's done it before. he was very xenophobic, I thought, for all this nonsense. Like, this is Britain. This is a proper country. We do things a proper way. He was basically having a dig at American owners and chic owners, leaving out the fact that one of the people in charge of this was British, essentially, and one of their chief people in instigating it, Woodward at United, is British. So I just wanted to get that in because that really annoyed me. That it's like, oh yeah, it's just these foreign owners coming in trying to change our British game, and we, the good old British football fans, stood up to them, and we do things proper in Britain. Shut up, Graham, you xenophobic git. Do you know what I mean?
But it's up. He's got a track record for that. We know that.
He's got a track record for that, as you said. He's just, it was horrible. I wanted to just get that in case we've got any international fans who are watching. I thought his comments were bang out of order. It's like, no, mate, it doesn't matter what country he's from. There's British people who were involved in this as well, and there was international fans who were just as outraged by this as we, the English football fans and the Italian football fans and the Spanish football fans of these clubs were. There were international fans like our friends on the Toffee Blues who are from the US and from South America who were just as angry as we were and didn't want this to happen. So I wanted to just get that in because I thought his comments were bang out of order.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it doesn't come as any surprise to me that Souness could come out with that kind of stuff because, let's just call it for what it is. He's a racist.
Yeah, he is, to be honest.
Let's just not mince our words. He's just a racist. And I haven't got time for him, and I don't know how he still gets on the TV.
It's just one of them, mate. Talking about what will happen long term now, the battle is won, but the war's not over. This is not gone away forever. We've kicked the can down the road. I think it will be a good while before they try this again, but they will try it again. Absolutely, they will. The only thing they've really learned or seem to learn, because leading the likes of Joe Glazer's statements and John W. Henry's crocodile tears in his video and all the other clubs saying the same thing, the only thing they've learned is that you can't mess with the pyramid scheme, that the fans will never, ever, ever get on board with something that doesn't involve relegation and promotion. That
doesn't involve sport and merit at the end of the day.
Yes, sport and merit, jeopardy. That seems to be the only thing that has properly sunk in with these sociopathic, brain-dead owners, that you can't take that away. So in 5 to 10 years, I think they'll try this again. They just won't have the closed shop aspect of it. They'll do something where they'll want to make a Super League with the likes of Real Madrid and Liverpool and United and AC Milan and Barcelona in it, but they will include a relegation part of it. And basically the Premier League and Serie A and whatever, La Liga, they'll all become basically international versions of the Championship. So you get the likes of these 10 clubs in there, and you'll have the likes of two teams every year, 2 teams from England, or 1 team from England, 1 team from Italy, or 1 team from Spain will get to go up and join them. Basically, so if you win the Premier League, you get to join the Super League. Basically, turn the Premier League and the La Liga and Serie A and into what the Championship is now. Clubs fighting to get to the top of that so they can get into this international league. That's what they'll do. They'll basically just come back with this Super League. Just this time, they'll have a better presentation for it, a better rollout, a better game plan, a better spin doctors for it. They'll spend more money on the stuff like the website and the how they unveil it, because that will go a long way, as we were mentioned. They'll bring all that out and they'll just make sure they include the relegation in it, because they know that was the major hurdle that they fell down on. Just as long as we don't take away the relegation, a lot more people will get on board with it. Because they would have done, I promise you, there would have been nowhere near as much backlash from the fans of those 6 teams, especially the 12 teams overall, but it was the most fierce for the 6, wasn't it, in England here. There wouldn't have been anywhere near as much backlash had they just not messed with the relegation and the promotion. If you'd have said to Liverpool fans and United fans and Chelsea fans, you're going to join the Super League and play the likes of Real Madrid and Barcelona and AC Milan every week, that's going to be your new weekly fixture instead of playing Norwich away and Brighton away and Crystal Palace at home. You're not going to be doing that anymore. You're going to be playing Real Madrid at home. You're going to be playing Barcelona away. That's going to be your new weekly fixture. They'd all be on board with it as long as there was an aspect of relegation to it in jeopardy. That's all it would be, because even if these clubs, let's say they have a mad season and the likes of Man United got relegated from the Super League and they had to go back to the Premier League and play all the likes of the clubs I've just mentioned, they've got the money where they just go straight back up again. So at the most, they'd be out of the Super League for 1 year. So that's all they'll do. The Super League will come back again. They'll try it again. Just this time, they'll make sure they'll learn the lessons that they've had to learn this time. Just roll it out better, present it better, spend more money on getting a website because that was terrible. Get a big jazzy logo. Make sure that when we first unveil it, we're not getting some stupid old man going on his mate's talk show to talk about it. We'll actually have a press conference with loads of journalists there. They'll do all of that, and they'll just make sure they include promotion and relegation, because if they do that, all the fans of these 12 clubs will have no problem getting on board with it, because I don't care what anyone says, the vast majority of United and Liverpool fans and Chelsea fans, they much rather be playing the likes of Chelsea, be playing the likes of Real Madrid and Barca every week than playing the likes of Norwich or Stoke. They would do, just as long as they knew there was jeopardy involved, because they would feel like it's legitimate then. It takes away that it's got no sporting merit. They'd say, well, it has got sporting merit, there's a chance we could get relegated.
And you can argue that if that's the case, but
yeah,
this was literally just a soccer franchise, as they put it.
MLS, MFL. Yeah, that's the only reason this fell down, was because it didn't take into account how much people would not like the closed shop element of it. That's all. That's the main reason that it's not going to happen. As long as they learn the lesson and they try it again in a couple of years' time, and they make sure they keep the pyramid aspect of it, the jeopardy aspect of it, then it's got a far, far, far better chance of working and getting off the ground. Because I think it was Simon Jordan on TalkSport said, if this was a boxing match, then they didn't even get out of the changing room. Boxing, never mind getting the ring and the bell ringing, getting in the ring and then the bell rang and they started throwing punches. Didn't even get out of the changing room. Didn't even put the boxing shorts on before it was finished. So, and as soon as this gets out of the gate, when they try this again, whether it's in 5 years, 10 years, whatever, if this idea just gets through the first hurdle like this one didn't, then it will happen.
Yeah. With that in mind, like, obviously back to the Premier League, I've got a few comments in the chat here. If I'm Fleming, I disagree with the definition of Big Six. I hate it. Where Spoon says it should be the Sinister Six. Yeah.
Scumbag Six. Sly Six. I've seen it all. And you raised a really good point, mate. You raised a really good point. All these media journalists and the likes of Sky leading the charge, being absolutely pig sick this was happening and going mad at these 6 clubs. It's like, you are the people who have enabled these clubs to feel like they can do this. You're the reason these clubs have got the egos that they've got, because you are the ones constantly
blowing smoke up the backside.
Use are the ones who are always getting graphics up and only having these 6 clubs included. Use the ones who are cutting Everton and Villa and Leicester out of your league tables to not show us, so you only show these. Like, it's Everton fans, it's become a running joke with us Everton fans, hasn't it? Whenever we're up and amongst it in the top 4 or the top 5 or whatever, if we're 5th, they'll only show the top 4. If we're 4th, they'll only show the top 3. You know what I'm getting at? And it's all these companies' fault. Journalists referring to them as the Big Six. Sky, who were particularly bad for it, always cutting other clubs out and going out of their way to not include us in that bracket with these clubs. And it's just bollocks, mate. So the supporters had every right to be as angry as we were, but some of these media companies and journalists have no right.
Absolute platitudes that there's no other. I don't know what the best way of putting it is. It's literally just, it's so false, because when I was watching Monday Night Football with Gary Neville and whatnot on Monday night and on the Sunday when it first came out, I saw a lot of this from the Sky pundits, and I just thought, yes, these people probably have these opinions themselves personally, but the party line of your employers is to big these 6 up to the point, like you say, where people are saying there's no way that, like, if people are saying, oh Everton, if you got invited, you're gone. If Sky got invited to broadcast, they'd have gone.
Exactly, mate. I do believe the likes of Gary Neville and Carragher, who are on Sky, do genuinely believe what they're saying. I don't think that.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think they were getting told what to say or pressured into putting a certain message across. I think they were actually speaking from the heart, but it's their bosses. Do you know what I mean? There's a reason that Gary Neville gets to commentate on United games all the time, because Sky are always putting United on the telly, on Sky, on their channel, no matter who they're playing. It could be the worst game. That makes no sense. I saw a brilliant stat a few weeks ago, this was, and I think I put it on Twitter. since Alex Ferguson retired, when was that? About 6-7 years ago now.
8 years ago this summer.
8 years ago this summer. So at the end of this season, it will have been 8 full seasons since he's retired. In the 8 full seasons since Alex Ferguson left United, United have had the most 0-0 draws of any club that's been in the Premier League for that entire 8-year period. So they have had basically more bore draw games than anyone, and they're still always getting on Sky. When the evidence is there that more than anyone else, they produce boring games, and they're still getting on Sky and talked about as if it's this brilliant thing that we should, and it's fantastic entertainment. It's not. I can't tell you the amount of times I've watched Arsenal and just been bored to tears. The amount of times I've watched Tottenham and just thought I'm tearing this off because it's awful. Because no teams are willing to go forward and try and score, or no teams getting the tactics right. Do you know what I mean? Even games where there's goals in them, it can still be a crap watch because you're just watching players who are off because they've signed players who are not top class. I mean, I would never accuse Liverpool or City of being boring because they've all got the best players and they get the best foot managers and they get the best tactics, and it's entertaining to watch because you can see greatness at work. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing great about watching United. United haven't got many great players, so they're not going to produce great football, really. Tottenham certainly don't have many great players, so they're not going to produce great football. So why are Sky and BT as well, and other channels, but Sky are the main culprits because they've been around the longest. Why are they constantly putting these clubs on and making them feel like they're a big deal when the evidence is there to suggest that these teams regularly over the last 10 years or so have been putting on the most boring games? Do you know what I mean? It's got to stop. It's got to be fair for everyone. You've got to put everyone on this and give everyone the same treatment and make the neutral fan watching it feel like this neutral game they're watching is just as important as any other neutral game. If you're a Brighton fan and you're watching Man United versus Newcastle, right? You shouldn't, as a neutral fan, as a Brighton fan watching two teams you don't support, you shouldn't be made to feel like that game is more important and more of a big deal than if you're watching Burnley versus West Ham. You don't support Burnley versus West Ham either, but they'll talk to you as if it's just some boring game. And we're glad you're here, but we wouldn't blame you if you weren't watching us. Whereas when United or Liverpool or Chelsea are on, they make it sound like it's the hottest ticket in town, no matter who they're playing and no matter how inconsequential the game might be. Why are they putting Liverpool on and United on in the third round of the Carabao Cup when they're playing the likes of a League Two team? Why are they putting that on and making it out like it's brilliant?
I get that for the giant killing aspect of it. It's more when you get a standard championship team in the third round where it's not a major shock.
Yeah.
Don't say if it was like a Man United versus, we've seen it a number of times, Derby, and I know Derby did spring a surprise on them and that, but it's...
You know what I think people know what I'm getting at though. Like, why is it whenever any of these, the Sly Six, whenever the Sly Six are on telly, is it made to feel like it's a bigger deal than if you're watching two teams who were not one of those six? It's because they love these clubs. They love these clubs because they drive the revenue. And the reason these clubs drive the revenue and they've got more fans than anyone all over the world is because these channels, these channels have made them feel like a bigger deal. There could be some fella in, I don't know, China who has decided he's going to be a Man United fan because he's seen the big hoo-ha that gets made of them. United haven't really done anything since Ferguson retired. They haven't won a league. They haven't got anywhere near a Champions League. Yet they're still picking up all these international fans because they see them on international broadcasts being made out like the biggest thing in the world. And they shouldn't be.
I mean, it's one of those. I get clubs have got heritage and, United have got a lot of history. Man United, Liverpool have as well. But, and there's nothing wrong with digging up the history of these clubs. But for the here and now, just call a spade a spade.
Exactly. Your history shouldn't have anything to do with you getting a better treatment from broadcasters or governing bodies like UEFA. Your history is great, but your history is just there for your fans to enjoy and for other fans to respect, even if they don't like you. It shouldn't have anything to do when you get around the table and negotiate business what your history is. It shouldn't. It doesn't matter how many league titles you've won or whatever, or what manager you've got, or what players you've got. That shouldn't mean you've got more right to go around the negotiating table and demand more money from the channels and co-efficiency places in the top competitions from
Yeah, I can't get
the likes
over
of
that.
UEFA.
Like,
Do you know what I mean?
we'll touch on the Champions League reforms as well, because that's got to be the next sort of point of ire for the football community. With that in mind, Toffee Blues John's popped up in the chat. Hello to all the fans of the Greedy Six in the comments. Thanks for your contributions to the channel. Yeah, I mean, a few more views on tonight, and I wonder why that could be. I mean, anyone who comes down hard on the, like you say, the Sly Six, there is going to be a bit of a doubling down from, these groups of supporters, and we're seeing it this evening. But it's one of those. I mean, these teams, like you say, I think the media have peddled them to be, yeah, it's almost like untouchable at times, and like it's an affront if they get beat.
As I said, mate, yeah, and they've made these clubs out to be like the crown jewels of football when they're not. It doesn't matter what they've won or what manager or players they've got. They're not more important than any other club that's in their division. And they're not more important than any other club, full stop. You can't tell me that the most Liverpool mean more to Liverpool. Liverpool means more to Liverpool fans than Brentford means to a Brentford fan, or Oldham means to an Oldham fan.
But this means more, mate.
They all love. Yeah, this means more money for us. You can't turn around. No one has got any right to turn around and say to anyone else, "My club is better than yours." You can say my team is better than yours. My club's won more than yours. My club's more respected than yours. My club's got more to offer than yours in terms of enjoyment. But you can't turn around and say my club is better than yours, and that's in the sense that we deserve to get more preferential treatment than you do. We deserve people bowing down to us more and giving us our way more than yours do, just because we get more international viewers and we've got more trophies. No, it doesn't work like that. Every club's got to be respected. It's got to be everyone on a everyone on a level playing field when it comes to getting a fair crack at the whip from the authorities. And as I said earlier on, if you can relegate Wigan because their owner put them in administration, I can't see how you can't come down hard on these clubs when they basically try to undermine the Premier League,
everything we all do, basically.
Everything we all do, basically try to split football in two, just cause irreparable damage to the sport that everyone loves. I can't say you can just let these clubs swan off with it and get away with it when you're sending other clubs out of business because, as you said, at Bury, you're putting a club out of business just because some idiot turns up, some chancer, and decided to asset strip them and basically walk off and leave them. And he wasn't bothered what happens. I can't see how you can let that happen. And when, what's it called? I'm just repeating myself, aren't I? So
We've got points here. Callum Pierce says, think of it in boxing terms, the fights that get the most views, get the most money and coverage. And I don't think Paul understands the business of media. Callum, I'm not being funny, mate.
No, I'm not being funny. Boxing's an individual sport, mate. It's not a team sport. It's not a league. Do you know what I mean? Boxing really is the Wild West. It's everyone out for themselves. Do you know what I mean?
That's it. Callum saying here, I don't think Paul understands the business of media. I don't think Callum understands football.
He can have whatever opinion he wants to have, but the thing like, oh, this is how it works in boxing. They're individual sports, mate. They're completely different. They are not in a league system. Do you know what I mean? That's boxing's. I follow boxing. Boxing's probably the most Wild West sport there is because there's no governing body in boxing at all. For anyone who doesn't know, there is no such thing as an FA or a FIFA or a UEFA in boxing. There's just organisations that issue belts, and if you want to fight for their belts, you've got to pay them money. That's what it is in boxing. There is no such thing as a top power who decides everything, and that's just what you've got to get on with. There's no such thing. No boxer can be banned. I'll put it this way: no boxer can be banned. All that can happen is, what are they called? The British Boxing Board of Control licensing. boards can withdraw licensing, so you just can't fight under anything that's in their license. Do you remember when David Hay fought Derek Chisora at West Ham?
Yeah.
Basically, that fight happened in Britain, and have a guess which licensing board they used for that. Didn't use the British one because the British
Everton.
one. No.
Oh no.
I think you're
Not a clue.
Macedonia.
Oh.
They fought
Interesting.
David Hay and David Hay and Derek Chisora fought at West Ham, and they were licensed to fight by the Macedonian Boxing Board. And there's nothing they could do to stop them, because what are the British board going to do? They can't dock them points. They're not in a league system. They're just two fellas having a fight and selling it and making money. So that whatever Callum's argument is in boxing, its views, mate, you don't know what you're talking about. Seriously.
The hero says here, it's the disgusting businessman behind the clubs, not the clubs. Use your heads. But it is the club.
No, I do know what he means. I think Jamie Carragher made a good point when he went, look, this is not Liverpool, this is FSG, this is not Man United, this is the Glazers, this is not City, this is the Sheikh, Mansour family, whoever. I get that. You shouldn't be angry at the fans or angry at the club staff or angry at the club's manager or angry at the players. I mean, you can't be annoyed at Jurgen Klopp or any Liverpool player because of what John Henry's done. I get that argument, but what we're also saying is, just because you can't be angry at the clubs doesn't mean that the club's owner can't be punished. And the only way to punish the owner is to sanction the club, is to dock them points, is to relegate them, is to ban them from things. That's the only way you can do it. And if the fans and the players and the managers and the shareholders of that club don't like it, take your eye out on the owner who got you in this situation in the first place.
Precisely, yeah. It's one of those. It's, for me, the club, regardless of, it's bad that these owners have done this to these clubs. These clubs have put their name to the European Super League, and in doing so, withdrawn from the European Club Association, and the potentially there was a risk of them being kicked out of the Premier League as well. For me, I think these clubs they've had the name put to this breakaway league, and it's a bit of a badge of shame. And I mean, it's not it's not a lot of the personnel's fault at the club, but it's the owner's decision. Like you say, the owner made the decision on behalf of Wigan Athletic to put the club into administration when there wasn't actually financial difficulty. I don't think. I think that was a decision made by him because I think he gambled money on them making losses.
Yeah. I mean,
something along those lines.
But the story's coming back to me now. He put a big bet on them to get relegated, didn't he? And so he put them in administration to make sure they were.
Yeah, basically, that was it. And, then you have, like you say, the likes of people, asset stripping Bolton Wanderers and Bury and the likes of that, those clubs were punished because of the owners' misdemeanours. This is the same context.
Yeah, as I said, the only way to punish the owners is to sanction the club. And the people at the club who were not responsible for what happened, if you don't like that, and I don't blame you for not liking it, I'd hate it as well, just as much, but if you don't like it, take your frustration and your anger out on the owner who's put you in that position in the first place, not at the authorities who are just doing what they have to do. Hold your owner responsible. Because if they don't...
There's regulations in place, we talk about L9 in the Premier League about, these things have to be ratified before they can decide to break away and whatnot. But, if the Premier League's got any sense, it will come down hard on clubs that have broken the rules. Zero the hero again here. Low PL went off the top six. There's nothing. They may as well quit business at the end of the season.
Mate,
no.
They've had the bluff call, mate, because if they really wanted to do this, they were saying, we don't want to leave the Premier League. We want to form the European Super League, but we'll stay in our respective leagues. If they really wanted to do it and they believed 100% that it was going to happen, which some of them probably did, like the Glazers and FSG, but apparently Abramovich and City were sort of just dipping the toe in. Yeah, were sceptical. If they really believed that the Premier League was nothing without us, they would have just gone and said to the Premier League, see you later, we're not coming back, we'll withdraw them. But they didn't. They were desperate to have the cake and eat it. And fair play to him. The fella who runs FIFA, I can't remember his name, he said, no, you can't have both. You have it in this new league, and leaving your respective leagues, or you're staying in your respective leagues and you're scrapping this idea off. It's one or the other. And then they realised when these politicians were getting involved, saying, if you go and join this new league, where we can just not give your players work permits, your players are not going to be, and you're not going to be able to play in World Cups. That's when they've all seen their ass. So they've had the bluff called. As simple as that.
And fair play in that respect. Erwin Koeman says some fans need to stop being so forgiving of their owners. Yeah, I think there is elements of like bootlicking going on. I think when it comes to the owners, like we say, a lot of these owners have bankrolled these clubs to success, and that's the be all and end all for some glory supporters, isn't it?
Well, they're essentially what that is, mate. That's a dictatorship. That's when it doesn't matter what the person at the top does. We just support them and love them no matter what. That's what a dictator is, essentially. Don't want to get too philosophical for people, but that's what that is. That's when the person at the top is absolutely untouchable, and it doesn't matter what they do. We won't ever try and hold them to account for it. We won't ever voice our displeasure. We'll just get on with it and accept it for what it is. And it shouldn't be about that. You want to support a club that does. If you want to support a club that does that, then or support someone who does that, football's not the sport for you, honestly.
Here's another one of these comments again here. Big Six non-league. I think what they mean is that Steve refers to if the Big Six left the league, destroys TV deals. I mean, I'm not too sure about that.
I'm back.
The TV deals will probably diminish if the Big Six or Slice Six, whatever, left. But personally, I wouldn't have been too bothered. I mean, the football would just have to rebuild itself.
It would, and I think it would eventually, because what a lot of people misunderstood and what they underestimated is probably a better word, is a lot of the success of these clubs is down to the brand of the Premier League. I'll think of an example. If you follow UFC or MMA rather, the UFC is basically the holy grail. It's the Premier League of or the Champions League, whatever. It's the tip top of MMA. It's the pinnacle. It's what every fighter who starts in mixed martial arts wants to reach. They want to be good enough to get in the UFC. Now, another company has come along in the last 10, 15 years called Bellator, who were basically a competitor to the UFC. And they signed up a lot of the UFC's biggest names. Now, granted, a lot of them were kind of over the hill and weren't like capable of being world champions anymore, but they were all bona fide box office draws, the likes of Chuck Liddell, the likes of Tito Ortiz, the likes of Rampage Jackson, fellas who'd kind of become pop culture figures more than just professional fighters. They were really, really famous, and they were always doing big pay-per-view numbers for the UFC. These guys went to Bellator for more money, but Bellator didn't suddenly start getting more buys than the UFC. People just went, well, the UFC is the UFC is still the cream. I'm going to stay here because the UFC has been around for so long that it's just established now. This is where the best fighters are.
Gold standard.
This is the gold standard. I'm going to stay here. And the Bellator, it's still around, and people are interested in it, but it doesn't do anywhere near the business the UFC does, even though sometimes they take the UFC's biggest box office draws. The UFC just make new box office draws. Other people come up to the top and replace them. And that probably would have happened, not short term, I get that, but in the long term, if the likes of Chelsea and Leicester, if the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal got off the Super League, I think let's say West Ham won 4 Premier League titles. Now, in whatever rejigged version of the Premier League it is, if you bring 6 teams up for the Championship, and it was the likes of Everton and Leicester and West Ham competing for the Premier League every season, West Ham would become a massive club in their own right. Just same way Chelsea did in the mid-2000s when they started winning the Premier League. It would happen. It would happen. Not short term. I gather that they wouldn't become big teams overnight, but over 10, 20 years, West Ham would build up their own big fan base and become something comparable to what Chelsea have become, because they've won their respective league. They've won a brand that's already built and is already well respected all over the world.
Yeah,
that's what would happen.
That's the thing. That's just why I wasn't going to lose too much sleep if this ended up happening, because I know that this Super League wouldn't have been the success that people are proclaiming it could have been.
It would have been boring. it would have just been boring. People would have tuned in, watched it for a while, whether it was for 6 months, whether it was for 2 years, 5 years, probably not 5 years, but people would have got bored of it, and they'd have gone back to the Premier League and respectively went, because they'd have thought, even though those big clubs aren't here anymore, these other clubs who were not technically big clubs, or we didn't think of them as big clubs, because of course we're a big club and Aston Villa are a big club. But these clubs who we didn't think are important are now becoming important because they're winning the most entertaining league in the world, even if they've not, because the Premier League would have still Premier League would have stayed the most entertaining league in the world, is what I'm saying. And the most entertaining league in the world is the one that's going to get the biggest audience.
This is the thing. This is what I don't get sometimes, is that, in the early days of the Premier League in the 90s, obviously we weren't that good, but like the Premier League was a very entertaining league and full of drama, but none of this big six stuff was peddled. Obviously, United were dominating, and there was a lot of big names, and those names were still there, but this agenda wasn't peddled in the 90s. It was just the teams that were doing best were talked about the most, and it was just the way it was. Like, there was a lot more competition, and that was like just, it seems to call a spade more.
It's built up slowly over time, hasn't it? In the early years of the Premier League in the 90s, it was, as you were saying, but it just kind of got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, especially since the mid 2000s, since the likes of Chelsea broke in and whatever. Since big money's basically come into the game, massive billionaire owners since the mid 2000s onwards, it's just gone to the way it's ended up being now, where the media, the Sky, BT, they've all got their favourites, haven't they? And they're going to write about their favourites no matter what's going on, even if Aston Villa or Crystal Palace or West Ham, if something was going on at those clubs that was far more interesting and far more entertaining, it still wouldn't get as much column inches and airtime, because they'd just much rather talk about a club that they support, as in the media. All the media people support the big six, and you'd rather talk about your own club and talk about some other club, no matter how interesting that is going on over there.
Yeah, and also I think there's the element of there's bigger fan bases who support these slice six, and it is literally a case of, it's just, at the end of the day, it's literally just capitalism taking over It's capitalism taking over football, because it is literally just a case of these clubs with the bigger fan bases will get us more clicks. Yeah,
clickbait. That's all it is. Clickbait. The amount of non-articles that used to go on Sky when Mourinho was at United about him and Pogba, literally because Pogba gave him a dirty look on the training ground, they were having like debates on it. Do you remember that Sky programme, The Debate, where they talk about topics for like half an hour? Spent half an hour talking about the fact that Pogba gave Mourinho a dirty look on the training ground, and the cameras captured it. It's like, are you joking?
I'm going to have a debate about the cat walking along the garden wall in a minute.
Well, Aston Villa are now beating Man City, which is good. Spurs fluked the last-minute penalty winner against Southampton, which is annoying. But that was always going to happen, with now that Mourinho's gone. It shows you how much of a mad week it's been that Mourinho got the sack, and it wasn't really, no one was really even bothered, was he? It got 5 minutes worth of discussion. Any other time Mourinho's left a club in football, it's always been all over the head. It's been the main headline for 4 or 5 days. And what is Mourinho going to do next has always been what is on people's minds, isn't it? I don't think anyone's bothered what Mourinho does next now. And no one's really talked about the fact that he left Tottenham right before a cup final.
Yeah, it's, Toffee Blues John's just said here, the excitement of English clubs playing against the likes of Real Madrid, Juventus, Barca, etc., is that unless you get drawn in their group or get far into the Champions League, you won't do it that often. Now, obviously, that novelty will wear off after a couple of years in playing in a Super League.
Yeah, James, mate, what's your favourite tea? What's your favourite meal?
Your favourite meal?
Just if you could have if you could have something for your last meal, what would it be?
This topic's changed very quickly.
I'll get to the point. Just if you could choose to have anything to eat, what would it be?
My girlfriend's spaghetti bolognese.
Right. If you had your girlfriend's spaghetti bolognese every single night, would it still be your favourite?
Wouldn't be far off, but yeah, I know what you mean. I get bored of it.
Yeah, you get bored of it. Simple as that. Playing Real Madrid, Barcelona every week, like these owners wanted these teams to do, because it would get all the Asian market interested. If you were doing that every week, it would not feel special, honestly. You'd get nostalgic. You'd get nostalgia for your rainy nights in Stoke. And that's something that these don't grasp, these owners.
And that's it. We need to. I think sometimes you've just got. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. I mean, there's plenty in football that is broke, but the pyramid system's not one of them.
No, and they realise that now, as I was saying earlier on. When they inevitably try and bring this back, that'll be something they make sure that they keep the pyramid system. If they keep the pyramid system and they just make it so it's going to be all these clubs playing each other every week, I think fans, an awful lot of them, not us because we don't support them, but a lot of the clubs of those fans of those top six, or the 12 clubs involved, they'll get on board with it, at least in the short term. They'll get bored of it really quickly, like we've just been saying. Then they'll realise it's actually not that fun when you're doing it every week. But a lot of those fans will get on board as long as the pyramid system's kept, because they'll say, oh, well, it's still sport and merit, it's still a proper league, you can still get relegated, you're still all fighting for something, and it makes a difference if you lose, and it's worth celebrating when you win. Or they'll keep all of that.
You'd just get bored of it, though, wouldn't you? You know, like,
Yep, you would. Of course, you would.
Like, there's no pain in like getting beat. Imagine conceding like goal, like, it's all right. We'll just play them in 2 weeks.
There's no peaks without troughs, is there? Essentially, yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know really what else we could say on it, because we've just been throwing out all mad analogies. I've been asking what your food is. I've been mentioning lions having fights. It's been really flowery, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. But it's one of them. It's something that everyone's going to have a different opinion about this, like, especially like the potential consequences. Now, what's done is done, but what do we do moving forward? I personally think we should throw the book at these teams.
I do, but I'm not holding my breath, to be honest, because the people who've got the power to throw the book at these teams either all support these teams, or like the money that these teams bring in and aren't willing to give up that money. So they're probably not going to throw the book at them. They'll probably get some paltry. They'll get a fine. I reckon they'll get a fine, but a fine doesn't do anything. These are all owned by billionaires. It's chicken change, isn't it? If you really wanted to hurt them, you'd ban them from competitions and dock them points, but they're not going to do that, because if you ban them from the Champions League, it brings the Champions League revenue way down, which UEFA are not going to do. And if you dock the Premier League, if you dock them points in the Premier League, it reduces the chance of them being near the top of the Premier League, and that's not what the Premier League chiefs want, because it would bring the viewing figures down.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's basically a capitalist venture, really, where they want to get as many people watching the TV as they can.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. I mean, I don't want to get overly political about it, but there's certain aspects of capitalism that I can get behind. There's certain aspects that I absolutely will never get behind. And this was very much the latter.
Oh yeah, certainly. Urban Kuhn made a good point before we finish up. Let's talk about Mochiri and Everton's statement on Farhad Mochiri made one of his many appearances on TalkSport.
Yeah, and he's always must listen, isn't he? It's either always an absolute disaster, or it's really, really classy and good, isn't it? With Farhad, you never know what you're going to get with him, because he's been on the radio before and either made a show of himself, or he's got us all really fired up and proud. I was really made up with Denise Barrett-Baxendale and the statement she put out, and the club statement on the website. I thought it was just in it the right tone. It was so classy. It was getting commended across the football world by supporters and people involved with other clubs. It's what Everton do probably better than anyone, really, which is just give off this sort of image of just class and family values and doing the right thing and not throwing away your integrity. That's one thing that Everton do that no one else, I think, can get near. Just coming across really, really well in times of in bad moments.
Yeah, I think I like the personable touch of, obviously, Denise Barrett-Baxendale. I think emailed all the members as well, didn't he?
Yeah.
That Denise Barrett-Baxendale one was emailed to everyone.
Yeah, I like Denise Barrett-Baxendale. she's got like a lot of empathy, and I think that's what a lot of people at the club have got. A lot of empathy. They just know how to read people, don't they? Maybe not always in the past, because I'm not suddenly getting on the let's everyone just love the Everton board type thing. But in moments like this, the Everton board very, very, very rarely let themselves down, and they certainly didn't here. They did the complete opposite. They made everyone really, really proud to be an Evertonian, and it made me feel very proud to be an Evertonian. Because I'll just finish up, for all the stuff we have to put up with sometimes, not winning trophies, not being where we want, team not being where we want them to be in the league, not getting to have all these experiences and have all these memories that fans of other clubs get to have. We also don't have to suffer what they had to suffer over this last few days. The idea that our club
being ashamed of their club,
and the fear that our club was going to get taken off us by some billionaire owner who doesn't know anything about the history, doesn't care, and is going to go and basically give the club that I've grown up supporting and feel such an emotional connection with. He's basically going to go give it to some person in another country who's willing to spend more money on it, in terms of they're willing to go there and treat it like Disneyland. They're willing to go in the club shop and buy all sorts. They're willing to spend £20 on a hot dog and a drink and things like that. We don't have to worry about that. For all this, you don't win trophies, you don't do this. Yeah, we haven't for the last long while, but we also don't have to put up with the idea that our owner doesn't give a monkeys about us, and he'd rather give our club to someone who knows nothing about the club. They're just willing to spend a load of money in the shop, which is what your owner's willing to do.
Yeah, I think it's a good point remembering that Moshiri. I'm not surprised he's come out like this about it, because let's not forget he's come to blows near enough with Kroenke on a regular basis before he came to Everton.
Yeah, he was involved in Arsenal, wasn't he? So
him and Usmanov were practically hounded out of the Arsenal boardroom by Kroenke and his team of American sharks.
His minions, yeah. He's read the room very well. I didn't think of that, to be honest. Moshiri probably knows one of these top six more than other people do, because he knows Kroenke. So he knows what Kroenke was probably thinking when this happened. And he thought, oh my God, I've got to let the rest of the football world know what these other owners are like, and that this is not some big elaborate hoax. This is not a bluff. These people are serious. I know Kroenke's serious, and we're going to absolutely fight against them.
Yeah, and I think they did a brilliant job of it, to be honest. I don't think they could have, I think they really came out of that with their heads held high. I think one of the Everton and, the PR team and the board, I think some of the few people in all of this who can come out with their heads held high for the whole thing.
I don't really know what else there's to say, really. I mean, I don't think this league, this concept has gone away. I think it will be revisited somewhere down the line. I hope we can beat it back then, like we have this time. Really do, because I don't like the idea of a Super League, and I never will. And for all these, you're just jealous that you didn't get invited. I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer. Just kiss me ass.
I don't want to get invited.
Yeah. So it's the war's not over. It's not gone away forever. We've won this battle, and we should just enjoy it for now. And we'll have to just see how the future unfolds. But I'm really, really proud of Everton, and I'm really proud of all the other fans, even the fans of those 6 clubs who stood up and said, no, we're not having this. We're not going to accept this. You've got another thing coming. I think every football fan who stood up and made it clear how disgusted they were by this idea should be really, really proud of themselves, because, as we've mentioned, there are quite a lot of fans who were probably willing to just let this happen, because, well, they're not even fans, are they? They're just consumers. The people who are happy to think of themselves as consumers. And quite frankly, football doesn't need you. We don't want you.
We don't. Finally, before we do finish, Toffee Blues just said, let's do Torag a favour. He's been an Arsenal fan who's been contributing a lot to the chat, actually, this evening. He's been a sound gunner, in Toffee Blues John's words, but he wants to know a bit more about the Champions League reforms and our take on that.
Load of rubbish. It's basically just letting these clubs go into the Champions League, no matter how badly they're done in a season. They've changed it to, what is it? They're going to be 2 efficiency places for...
Coefficients.
Yeah. So basically, Man United could finish 16th and still get in the Champions League because they've been in the Champions League often enough over the past 20 years or something like that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. In a way, it might not be bad because I'd love to see Man United get pasted 10-0 off someone in Europe and make an embarrassment of themselves. But
yeah, but it's
it
not
defies the
fair.
point of our place could be taken. I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's not fair if West Ham finished fourth and then you turned around and said to West Ham, you can't be in the Champions League this year because you've never been in it before and United have been in it before and we think they'd offer more to it than you would in terms of brand exposure. It's not fair, so it's bollocks.
That's effectively what it is, and it's all about brand exposure. Again, it's all about money making.
Yeah, exactly. It's bollocks, but it's been verified, has it not? So it's been snuck in through the back door. It's walked in the back door wearing slippers, hasn't it? No one's really even noticed it. As I said at the start of the stream, I'd be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked, rather, if there's a lot of football fans who don't even know that this has happened. They'll read about it in the next few weeks. They've been so focused on all this European Super League controversy, they haven't even realised that this has happened because they haven't read it or they haven't seen anyone mention it. But I don't like it one bit, and I'm not against the idea of restructuring the Champions League, but not this way.
No, it's so wrong. Aaron Coombs says they're meant to be changing the coefficient places and getting rid of it. I read, which I mean that's a start, but I don't want any coefficient places. I want you to just get in if you finish in the top 4 or whatever. Not wrong with that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's not an awful, in my opinion, there's not an awful lot wrong with the Champions League now. I think there are a couple of tweaks you could make to it, but you don't have to be changing the qualifier criteria to get in. I'm still happy for the top 4 places to get in it. Maybe you could change around the group stages, or you could make just less teams get in it from less countries, because what's the point in having teams from, I don't know, Lithuania, Czechoslovakia in it, because it don't really make a difference, do they? But maybe that's just me being arrogant, the same way these are being arrogant, saying I don't see the point of having these clubs in it because I don't think they offer enough. I probably just made the same mistake that those billionaire owners.
Personally, I think all countries should get in, and I feel like you should have more of a chance. I mean, I know these sides probably these won't be as good, but I personally think it should just be winners of every league. But obviously, that's not the money spinner. Like you say, Czechoslovakia, their teams won't spin the money like a fourth English team.
Maybe just having it as a straight knockout again. I know it'll never go back to just being the champions of every country go in, because they won't have that, because then you'd only have maybe 16 teams in it, and that's not enough to fill the TV dates. But maybe you just made it a straight knockout tournament, and if you get Paris Saint-Germain versus Barcelona in the first round, so be it. So be it. And you get maybe Ludo Goretz getting an easy route to the final. If that's what happens, that's what happens. Draws like that can happen in the FA Cup and the League Cup. You get lower league sides or teams that no one thought would get anywhere near that stage of the competition, through the luck of the draw, managing to get there. Why not? That's how cup fairy tales happen, isn't it? Imagine you did that and a team like I don't know, Stade Rennes or Ludo Goretz or Krasnodar managed to get all the way to the final and win it, because basically all the big teams went out early. Well, good on them. That happens.
Do it, yeah. I'll have it.
Yeah. So I don't think that will happen. I think it will always be a league system, have like a group stage part of it, and then you'll have the knockout rounds later. But I'm not against the idea of maybe dropping the 4 teams in a group stage idea, maybe changing that round, because in the early 2000s it was different, wasn't it? You didn't have the groups, the 4 group teams in a group, did you? I think they had like groups of 8 or something.
No, there was group of 4, and then there was a second group stage.
Was there? Yeah,
and then I remember literally there was 2 rounds of group stages, and then it went on to the semis. Then,
yeah, I wouldn't want to go back to that. I do remember it was different to how it was now when Newcastle were in it in the early 2000s, but I wouldn't go back to that. But I'm not against the idea of having some sort of group stage, but I wouldn't have them as maybe 4. I'd maybe make them, expand them a little bit, and you can 100% bin off this third place goes in the Europa League. Get rid of that. No team that's starting the Champions League should be dropping into a lower competition. If you don't qualify for the next round, you're finished in Europe for that season. That should just be how it is.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
And bring back the Cup Winners' Cup. Well, yeah, I thought that was good.
You know what? I wouldn't mind them bringing that back. Maybe like once every few years. I wouldn't have it be a yearly thing because you'd have the same problem they had when they got rid of it. Essentially, teams are doing the doubles now, so there's no point having the runners up in it when you could have the runners up of the FA Cup and the runners up of the Spanish Cup playing each other in the final. Neither team actually won a trophy to get in the tournament in the first place. So, but I wouldn't be against like maybe having like a nostalgia thing where you may bring it back every once in a while. Let's say don't know because only England has 2 cups now. France have just got rid of their second cup, haven't they? And Italy and Spain have only got one. I wouldn't be against having a competition where basically, let's say the winner of the Spanish Cup, even if they are the team that went on to win the league, and the winner of the FA Cup and the winner of the Italian Cup and the winner of the French Cup all play each other, and then there's like a little mini trophy after that. So let's say City win the FA Cup. AC Milan win the Italian Cup, PSG win the French Cup, and Barcelona win the Spanish Cup. Those 2 teams all play each other in a semi-final and then a final, and then they win a trophy. They can just add that on top of the Champions League. They play in the Champions League as well, and then maybe just throw this in near the end of the season when there's a gap.
Pretty good. I wouldn't be against that. Sounds very similar to the Nations League format that they got in internationals.
But yeah, maybe. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to plug it full of loads of teams. Just have basically a glorified Super Cup, basically the cup Super Cup, essentially between teams. So whoever wins the domestic cup in their league all gets to compete for another trophy at the end of the season. But it's not like a full-on tournament. It's just maybe a group of 4 or 8 teams, and you can just get it done within 3 weeks. Just have one round 1 week, and then the next round the next week, and then the final the week after that. You could probably squeeze that in at the end of the season instead of going off on these long-winded pre-season tours, which teams just seem hell-bent on doing.
Again, it's all about money.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on all night here, but literally it all just boils down to money and greed.
Yeah.
And, it's not on. There's not loads we can do, but what we can do is, when it comes to undermining, the integrity of football, something's got to happen. And personally, I'd like to see a lot of punishment for this, but I'm not, like you said before, Paul, I'm not going to hold my breath over it.
No, there's no point. I mean, if any punishment happens, we should just consider it. I'm not going to say a bonus because it's bonus is something that you don't deserve. You happen to
it's just one less kick in the teeth.
Yeah, it's something to. If punishment does happen, it's something to smile about, but don't expect anything drastic, really.
No, I'm not holding my breath. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for getting involved in the comments, and it's been great to be able to discuss this. It's obviously something that we've all got very heated about, something we're all very passionate about as fans of the game. Thank you so much for tuning in. Keep letting us know your opinions. Keep dropping us comments. Give us a like, and of course, subscribe for more content, more live streams. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching on the Toffee Blues.